Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It's not a podcast, it's a phenomenon. Here are your hosts, former Fox News political correspondent Joel Waldman and his mom, Carmela, a licensed marriage therapist and Holocaust survivor.
And Karm, we are back for, I believe this is the lucky Jewish number 18, episode 18 with the great Russ Salzberg, who we're going to introduce in the next segment. Karm, you saw our first video episode with the former president of NBC News, Steve Kappas. He's the former president of MSNBC. He ran the Today Show. He ran the Nightly News with Tom Brokaw and Brian Williams and Lester Holt. And your first comment to me after getting him was, you hate the living room set on the green screen.
Well, I don't. Let's talk about Russ Salzberg.
What don't you like about the living room green screen?
No,
I feel like it makes you look
I
old?
love the green screen because it's something obvious. But the living room there was like an insult because some people will really think it's my taste.
So it's your
and my
ego.
taste is worse.
Your taste is worse. All right. So we have a great guest on. We'll be back right after this break with the main schmooze. Live from America's News Headquarters, I'm Joel Waldman.
And I'm Eliana Diaz.
We're professional storytellers, trained for over 20 years in tried and true TV techniques to get your brand message out to the masses. Clearly, convincingly, and concisely. We're creatives, out-of-the-box thinkers, doers with the background to prove it. Network news correspondents, on scene at some of the biggest stories, from terror attacks home and abroad to natural disasters across America.
They really talked about two factors. One was the winds. Obviously, we are feeling that now.
We've interviewed the powerful and some pretty powerful players. Performers who have won Oscars. Through it all, we've mastered the tricks of the trade, crafting authentic stories that are human, honest, and heartfelt. We are Content Partners.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
Karm, one thing I keep doing is delivering with great guests. As I said earlier, I think a week ago we had on MSNBC's and NBC News' Steve Kappas. Next week, I'm bringing us a UFC fighter. The week after that, a huge Instagram personality.
Wait a second.
And this
Isn't
week,
that your job as my producer?
I'm not your producer. This week, we have the great Russ Salzberg, New York City's most recognizable sports figure in broadcast sports for years. Russ, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We are excellent. We are excellent. Let me tell the audience, and we don't have prompter, a little bit about Russ. Russ Salzberg has been a fixture in New York sports for more than 4 decades, 5 decades, I guess. The great Russ Salzberg began his career as a sports anchor at WOR in 1988. And after Fox purchased WOR, Russ became the sports anchor at WNYW, where I worked. I also worked at WOR, and that's how I got to know Russ. 33 years later, Russ is one of the few in broadcast news who has stayed at the same station. Russ can also be heard on WABC radio in New York City, as well as 970 AM. And I know at one point you're on The Fan as well. A native of Sheepshead, Brooklyn, Russ is a self-described housing project kid who went to the famed Brooklyn Tech High School and then college, because he is worldly, in Montreal, selling real estate in Toronto before turning to sports back in, I believe it was 88. Russ hosts his own podcast, Get a Load of This, which he'll tell us about. And he may be the only person I know who casually curses more than my own mother.
We have something in common.
Quite frequently. I can attest to that, Carmela. Quite frequently.
Let's let loose today. Let's celebrate this moment.
So Russ, right off the bat, I know you've got your own podcast. Is get a load of this? That's your catchphrase, right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about the podcast.
No, it's just, it's not just sports. It's really any and everything. I'll get into politics and what's going on. And initially, when I was doing it, a lot of people suggested, Russ, you should make it about Brooklyn. And I thought that was a good idea. But if you automatically make it about Brooklyn, then it kind of moves you out of other areas. So I thought get a load of this kind of captures me and captures everything. And there's so many things to get a load of these days, both in sports and out of sports, especially with the climate in the country and what the hell is going on. In fact, I woke up this morning and I'm reading all this crap from what's going on in Israel and with the squad and some of the idiotic comments that are being made. So I'm already thinking about my next podcast. Actually, I was on the phone preparing something about it when I said, I got to get on with Joel and Carmela. So here I am.
I came here to avoid thinking about Israel, especially since I have 2 granddaughters who are living there.
Russ, what do you think about what's going on there right now?
If I start talking at great length about that, I'm going to drop one F-bomb after another.
Hey, we're on the internet. You can drop.
You know what? Joel and I usually have like a competition who can throw into a paragraph more of the F words.
Yeah.
And usually I win.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this to both of you, because I don't want to make this whole
No, it won't be
visit with you about
but
that.
You brought it up at the answer.
I know I did, but I was sitting there having some breakfast this morning after my run, and I'm reading these comments from Ilhan Omar and AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley, and it made me sick. And I'm thinking about, they ban people in our country off Twitter and Facebook. Why aren't these people banned? They're calling Israel inhumane. I mean, they are so full of shit. Yeah. They're choking on it.
I second it.
It's true.
Well, I didn't.
I'm not saying it for. I'm not saying it to kind of get effect. I'm saying it because I feel that way. I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, I didn't see her. I didn't see any of their comments.
No,
this
that's
morning.
very recent. That happened since yesterday.
Yes, talking about Israel. Israel is being humane. Israel is being humane.
Inhumane.
This is what they're talking
about. Inhumane.
Inhumane. Yeah. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's
the 700 plus missiles are not inhumane, and they are randomly just going all over the country, including Jerusalem. I will not carry a
So Carmela's own grandchildren. This is good. I'll rile you up. This is good.
No, don't rile me up.
No, Carmela's own grandchildren. My nieces. 2 of them, 2 of the 5 are living in Israel, and they sent us video 2 nights ago.
Well, first of all, they just are either too naive or something. There was a family birthday party in the next small town on the father's side, and they went over there. And at one point, they're sending me a video of the missiles getting all the way to North Israel. It's like the whole country is like 1/4 of New Jersey, and now they are sending missiles to Herzliya, Israel, and they were there. Terrible. So I said to them, "Go back to your place." They were driving, and I said, "If it hits you in the middle." I'm an expert on this because I was there in 2014 when it happened. I said, get out of the car, lie down on your stomach on the side of the road and cover your head because people die from shrapnel. And
shrapnel.
What?
Shrapnel. The other one is
correcting her. She knows what she's talking about.
The other one is Al Sharpnel.
Okay, and I this is your hour, and I tell you one thing that bothers me about this hour. I told you should get riled up, Russ. You want to hear what bothers me about? I remember you definitely because I always, whenever Joel is in a station, I always watch that station. So I do remember you, and I know you are terrific. But I don't know how I will participate because This is probably the only thing I don't know
Karm
in
was
life.
terrified because she knows nothing about sports.
And I know if I were a 20-year-old pretty face like on all the TV stations, at least I could sit there and, just, I am like the bad.
You're fine, Carmela. You are fine.
But talk about
do you know what a catchphrase is? His
Yes, I know what the catchphrase is. I don't have
most
one.
sportscasters have a catchphrase. Do you know
Yes.
what Marv Albert's catchphrase
No,
was?
what was
By the
it?
way, I went to sleepaway camp with Kenny Albert, Russ, at Kutcher Sports Academy. Marv Albert's catchphrase is yes.
Yes.
Like one word.
No.
But everyone knows him, right?
No, but there was. I knew catchphrases. Why didn't you tell me to prepare before? Because I knew some of them, like the.
You need a catchphrase, Carmen.
What?
You need a catchphrase.
No, my catchphrase is "Let me ask you a question."
Let me ask you a
and
question.
then you always say, "Don't say you don't need to say."
Russ, what is the greatest, in your opinion, the greatest catchphrase of all time? Besides yours.
I mean, what do you talk about? Bye bye, so long, farewell.
You mean the home run?
Bye, so long.
Who said that? Who said that?
Me.
The great Russ Salzberg.
The greatest. I couldn't even begin to tell you.
Yeah.
Marv's is pretty famous. Yes is pretty famous.
Yeah. Does Bruce Beck have one? I don't even know.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Interesting. So,
but is your nickname the schmooze?
No, I was the sweater. He was the schmooze.
There was the sweater and the schmooze, and he
Steve
was
Summers was the schmoozer.
But we always have on this this is our 18th, but we always say on our podcast, we always say the main schmooze.
The main schmooze.
The main schmooze.
This is the main schmooze. Then we do the news schmooze after this. But how is the schmooze? You can tell me if he's not a nice guy.
No, good guy.
Good guy.
Good guy. He is what he is. I mean, he's a bit eccentric, a bit Michigana.
Yeah.
I think he when he was born like 80 years old.
Yeah.
It happens to some
people. He was an Alta Kaka at birth. I can assure you that.
I loved it. You see, I don't speak fluent Yiddish, but Alta Kaka, schmooze.
Well, schmooze, is that even Yiddish?
That's Yiddish.
It is? Oh.
Yeah, of course it's Yiddish. It's now in the official part.
All right, let's go through a couple others, which you won't. Do you know who Mike Francesa is?
Don't do this to me. He loves to prove how stupid I am.
Wait, how's Francesa? Is it pain in the ass?
Yeah, pretty much.
And what about Mad Dog? So there's a guy.
Mad Dog, I know because you listen sometimes to the radio.
Mad Dog, whose real name is Chris Russo, has been on sports radio for I don't know how long. And he has a speech impediment, right, Russ? I mean, like he doesn't pronounce his R's or something.
No, but that's because he's from Brooklyn.
He's just himself. Chris is a good guy.
Yeah.
Chris is a good guy.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You know, at one point, I actually, pre-pandemic, I had an idea. I wanted to write a screenplay about life without sports. Like what would happen to the world? Because men would have really nothing to look forward to. Maybe more women would get beat up by their husbands.
Men couldn't talk about anything.
They couldn't.
Because men don't talk about personal things. They talk about sports.
This is true. So,
I mean,
Russ,
this is a stereotype, okay?
Like my dad.
There you go.
Like my dad says, everyone has a religion, and baseball is a religion to a lot of people. Why do you think people are so? How can Mad Dog at his age get so fired up about sports? What is it about sports?
Well, you see that. I'll disagree when people say, well, you know, why do people get so fired up about entertainment? I mean, I open up the paper today. I'm reading before it was like J-Lo and what was it, J-Rod or whatever. Now it's Bennifer. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, but everybody's obsessed with it. You have one magazine show after another. You know, it's entertainment, whatever. People get excited about it. I mean, sports is
sports basically because most people's lives are mundane and it's just an outlet for them. I mean, is that what you think it comes down to?
No, I think sports people enjoy sports. It's like people enjoy. Why do people hunt?
Yeah.
I mean, people have hobbies. Why do people play chess?
Yeah.
I mean, why do people collect stamps? I mean, it's,
there are so many worlds with an L, worlds. And one of, people get into a certain world. And that's what they might. And I think sports is more like universal. Like everybody, like
yes.
in India, they like cricket or whatever the heck.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a form of entertainment. It's a form of, why do people play it?
And it's a distraction. It's totally different from earning your living or taking care of your family or, all those other things. It's like takes you out of that shit into a different shit.
I like the way you said that. You said that very well.
I try to do it very delicately.
Yes, you do.
You actually you avoid cursing on the show.
I never curse. And every now and then I use a word and then the person we interview is like totally in a state of shock because I look like I couldn't use those words. But the interesting thing is I only mostly I use these words with Joel. Our daughter is just too refined. She never, ever, never uses 4-letter words. And my husband doesn't. So we are like two teams, Again.
There you go. Opposites attract.
Exactly.
Right. So back to sports for a second. Have you heard of Mike Tyson?
Yes, yes.
Who is Mike Tyson?
He is...
what sport, Mom?
Wait a second. Don't boxer.
Boxer.
Well, I almost said wrestler.
So Russ has a history with Mike Tyson. Russ, tell us a little bit about this because this is, and I should have told you beforehand, but afterwards you'll watch the video. But Russ, tell us what happened.
I was exactly how this happened. I'm at Channel 9 one night, and I get a call, and Tyson was getting ready for a fight. Excuse me. He was getting ready for a fight. I think it was his first fight after the incident where he bit off Evander Holyfield's ear, part of his ear. So I get a call, and they were doing a satellite setup from Vegas, and they said, "Russ, you want to speak with Mike Tyson?" I said, "Sure, I'll do it." And they said, "Well, we're doing it with one station from each city, let's say." So I said, "Well, how come you just I'm gratified, but what made you pick us?" She says, "Well, you do a lot of stories on boxing." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'll do it, but I don't want to be deep in the pecking order because I know he's going to get tired and cranky." So I said, "Where am I? Like, if I'm going to be like the 7th or 8th person to interview him, no good." So she calls me back in like 10 minutes later and says, "You'll be number 2." And we set up the time. I says, "Great, I'll be number 2." So he starts off and we're talking, it's going okay. And then the first thing out of his mouth is, "Well, it's a fight, so fuck it." I go, "Okay." And I says, "Mike, well, how does rage work for you or against you?" And he goes, "Well, what the fuck does it matter? It's a fight." I said, but Mike, for example, rage worked against you in the Evander Holyfield fight. And he says, he drops another F-bomb. And I go, "Mike, why do you talk like that? Why do you have to talk like that?" He says, "Well, it's a fucking fight. If you don't like the way I talk, you got to turn off your radio, your television station." I said, "You know what, Mike? We're going to end the interview right now." So he starts dropping more F-bombs. And my producer at the time, if you remember him, Joel, Rich Bagala, to Rich's credit, he kept everything on a 2-shot.
Uh-huh.
So that meant everything that had to be run on every station had to have my punum on it on every place.
Move. Yeah.
It was a brilliant move by him. But as it was going off, when I cut it off, on the raw tape, which we never showed, or we destroyed it, it's like, "Fuck you, your mother, you're this, you're that." He's a complete lunatic. And I laugh now, because now, Carmela, now they say they make like he's this wonderful Shayna Boychik because, now he's nice and he talks more politely. Why does he talk nice now? Because he needs money. So he's got to act like a gentleman so people will talk to him. The guy's a putz, bad guy.
Interesting.
But today, if it would have happened today, it would have become viral.
It's gone viral because the videos.
It's been all over YouTube many years.
Yeah, many years. I wonder how. I have to check out how many views that has. But I was listening to. I had a business trip, so I was in the car for a few hours yesterday, and I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he was saying that he just moved his studios to Austin, Texas, and he purposely got a very wide. At first, he said, "I want to get a much narrower
he didn't
desk."
Want anybody to punch him.
Yeah, and he said he wanted a narrower desk so he could be closer to his guests. But then he remembered he had a crazy interview with Mike Tyson, who was coming in when he had the studio in L.A. and had a fight. It was the exhibition fight. He came in and he was like fired up. Like when he's in fight mode, he's like super animated. And Rogan, who's a black belt in Taekwondo and other martial arts,
I wouldn't go up against Tyson.
Rogan was like, I was scared out of my mind that this guy was going to kill me. So long story short, he kept the desk wider when he moved in case there was ever.
That's a clever idea. You should do it. We should do it too.
But Russ, after that point, did you ever interview Tyson in person or anything?
No. In fact, you want to know something? Somebody approached me a few years ago. I don't know if they ever spoke to him, but they approached me to ask me, hey, Russ, maybe we can put something together like, reunite you two guys and, we can make some money on it, do like a sit down in an auditorium. And I said, don't even bother going there because I'm not interested. Well, but you can make some money. I says, I'm not interested because if I did it, I would be a hypocrite. I think the guy's a bum. I'm one of those people. I don't have to like you to interview you. But if I'm constantly, for example, a guy like A-Rod, I think A-Rod is a fraud. He's a liar. He's cheated people.
Yeah.
No, but my point being, so I'm not, if somebody says, hey, Russ, you want to talk to A-Rod? No, I'm not interested because there's nothing I can do. I'd have to attack him right away. And it's pointless. It's been done already. So
have you gone?
If I don't like you, why am I going to talk to you?
Have you gone at it with him?
No, I always had a decent relationship with him, but every time I would talk with A-Rod, I would want to go in and try and take a shower and fumigate myself because the stench from the bullshit that he would throw at me was like disgusting.
It's so funny.
You know who he is, right? He dates J-Lo.
But it's so unbelievably funny. Sometimes things are like almost psychic because I wanted to say, I really don't know. Of course, I never met any of these people, of course, but I have this fantasy that he wears some very, very strong men's cologne.
I thought you were going to say something like women's lingerie or something.
No. Very, very strongly smelling men's, which turns me off. I like body odor in a certain way coming from Yugoslavia. And
this just went off the rails. But.
Yeah.
But that was my fantasy of A-Rod, that he wears a lot of men's cologne.
Russ, does he wear a lot of men's cologne?
You know what? I never bothered to get close enough to really even give a shit what he wore.
Yeah.
I think I was a dog in my previous life.
What about Derek Jeter? Good guy?
The complete opposite. Derek wasn't enamored with talking with the media. But the difference with Derek was he wasn't a phony about it. He was a gentleman. He respected that you had a job to do. He was always at his locker. And he never gave you like anything really like, wow, did you hear that?
Yeah.
But, he was a straight up guy. Yeah, no, he was, what? From the time I met him as a rookie to the time I said goodbye, stand up guy.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite interview or favorite athlete that you've dealt with?
Boy, there's a lot of them.
Maybe you should give me 10 names now.
You know what? I was always pretty friendly with Phil Simms and Lawrence Taylor, who Lawrence was difficult, but Lawrence was okay. Michael Strahan. I'll tell you who was a favorite of mine, and it was tragic how it ended up, but fortunately he's got his life back on the right track.
Darryl Strawberry.
Jason Williams.
Oh, Jason Williams. Oh.
Because Jason Williams, I mean, with kids and people in charity, he was the absolute best. You know, and then he had his legal issues and, you know, then had some, you know, substance abuse, drinking problems, but he's gotten himself straightened out. And then I speak to him now and then. So, but just a great, I mean, he would do things for kids for tomorrow's children's fund and really out of his own pocket. Very special guy.
I'll tell you what kind of ruined sports for me. And this might be controversial, especially since he's no longer with us, but Stu Scott of ESPN, may he rest in peace. I don't know, that era when ESPN, they just got so like gimmicky and everyone had to be an actor on TV. You know, everyone had their like crazy, it wasn't shtick, like it, I don't know. It felt, speaking of like disingenuous, it just didn't feel real. And that's when I got turned off from sports.
That's a pretty fair analogy because, well, first of all, whether they have women there or not, I mean, of course they do. It's still a boys' club, and everybody's in a competition. And you just nailed it, Joel. That's a pretty astute description. It's everybody's got to be. It's. I view it as always one-upsmanship. Yeah, you know, and they all feel like sports starts and stops with us, which is a bunch of shit anyway. I mean, they do a good job with a great many things, and that's what they cover. Their job is to cover sports.
I hear it's a nightmare to work there, though, because it's just like, you know, it's like a factory. Just constantly spitting it out. But so, Russ, tell me about Karm is lost here. I can see it in her eyes.
No. I am totally thinking, what will Joel do next? Because I would like to know about his family.
Well, I was just going to say, let's go to something Carmela can relate to. Sheepshead, Brooklyn. What was it like?
Sheepshead Bay.
Sheepshead Bay. Sorry. What was it like growing up in Sheepshead Bay?
The best. I was born in the Bronx. I went to the Sheepshead Bay projects, I guess when I was 9 years old, going into the 4th grade. And
what'd your dad do? What'd your mom do?
My father worked for the Transit Authority. You know, and you know,
and he was born here. Your dad?
Yes.
And your mom?
My mother was born in Toronto.
Oh, okay. And your mom was a stay-at-home? What are they? I forget what they homemaker. That was the word.
Yeah, well, she was a homemaker when we were younger. Then she went to work. Listen, my father never made more than $165 a week. No, I don't care if it was during the Civil War and you were going out west. $165 a week was not a lot of money. You know, and you mentioned that I went to college in Montreal. You know why I went to college in Montreal? It was Loyola College, a Jesuit college in Montreal. First of all, it was a good school. But the reason I went up there, I wanted to go away to school. My father was very sick during high school. Long story short, he subsequently passed away 2 weeks before I was going to college. But room, board, and tuition in 1969, and a beautiful place, $1,350. That's why I went to college in Montreal.
I think I told you.
Room, board, and tuition. My mother, let her rest in peace, used to send me $65 a month. Now, why $65 a month? Because at that time, the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American dollar. So the 65 amounted to 60, $15 a week. I was in heaven. I had all kinds of money. I was hustling on my own. Great time up in Montreal.
Karm, where's my $65?
You're 65. He already was born to a father who was a doctor.
There you go.
He is so spoiled that you should worry about it.
So, that's interesting. I mean, was it a rough like everyone? So Carmela is obviously a child of the Holocaust.
How many siblings did you have?
I had one younger brother who passed away a couple of years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that. You know, like Carmela grew up in the Holocaust, you know, but she still looks back.
I didn't grow up in the Holocaust.
Well, Excuse me.
Post-Holocaust. You could say, if you want a nice sentence, you could say, Carmela grew up during communism.
Carmela grew up during communism. My point is this. Carmela looks back fondly on her childhood, and she has a friend who literally is from Poland and was hidden like in a coffin to hide from the Nazis. And I've interviewed her, and she looks back at her childhood like it was the greatest thing ever. So it's interesting. When you grew up in the projects, you were obviously poor. Did you know that?
Were you ever beaten up?
No, but you see that. First of all, when I was growing up in the projects, most of the people in the projects were, kind of civil workers. My father worked for the transit authority. You might have been a cop. You might have been a fireman. You might have been a postal worker. The thing that I grew up, the best part about growing up in the projects was that growing up in the projects, you learned what the other side was like. Let me give you an example. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Gentile people in the building would not allow their children to play in front of the building on those holidays. And if they wanted to hang out in front of the building, they had to dress nicely out of respect for the Jewish people. At the same point, on Fridays, if my Gentile friends were coming over to the house, my mother automatically knew that she couldn't serve meat. It had to be fish, or we had a fish sticks, or we had to have pizza, because you knew what the other side lived like. And you know what? That's not the way it is today.
They respected the other side.
Exactly, Carmela. I never wanted to be one of those people that would say, in my day, it was better. Mm-hmm. But in my day, it was better. And Joe, don't forget, I'm a child of the 50s and the 60s and the early 70s. I grew up with civil rights. I grew up with Vietnam. I grew up with marches on Washington. I grew up when people were burning draft cards. So I know all about with Kent State. Yeah. It's worse today because today they don't even know. It's just everything's a cancel culture. Did you read the thing last week? There's a big to-do in Disneyland because Prince Charming kissed Snow White without permission.
Yeah, I did read about that.
No,
I mean, are you kidding me?
I usually notice things like this, but I missed that one.
So if he didn't kiss her, she'd still be sleeping.
So what did you think? Not to get deep, but this will rile Carmela up. When all these kind of George Floyd protests and riots were going on, and kind of the birth of BLM.
No, I couldn't understand. For this, for this alone, I will be stoned. I will. If somebody hears this, I couldn't. It was the most horrendous 9 minutes in the history of America. But to make into a hero somebody who abused a woman before.
Well, I'd argue 9/11 might be worse, but that wasn't 9 minutes. So you specified.
Well, no,
9 minutes. That took a half an hour.
But Carmela brings out your mom brings out a good point, because like it completely divided the country, and I happen to agree. I mean, to me, not enough bad things can happen to the cop, because the cop, Derek Chauvin, turned the world, our country, inside out and upside down. But your mom is right. A guy went into, first of all, why was he in prison for 7 years? Because he forced his way into a house with other people and took a gun and stuck it to a pregnant woman's belly. Okay? And they're making this guy out to be like
a saint.
Martin Luther King. It was the same thing that happened to Jacob Blake in Wisconsin. Jacob Blake, he didn't deserve to get shot 8 times in the back. I will say that. At the same point, what did he do prior to that? He went into a house. He went to the apartment. It was his girlfriend, common law wife, or what? And I don't want to be crass there. He took his fingers and stuck it in the woman's vagina, smelt his fingers, and said, "Oh, somebody else must have been here." Then took the car keys and went to the car. And when Kamala Harris spoke to him, she called him a hero.
Yeah.
Am I nuts? And as far as BLM, I couldn't agree with you more. I said this on the air. I've said it on my podcast. If
You
somebody
mean,
said
you mean, wait a minute, there is hope nobody will come to shoot me?
No. Because you'd be surprised, Carmela, a lot of people think like you. Listen, the country has to get better. But I've said this several times. If somebody says to me, African American lives matter, without question,
100%
I'll march
they
with
matter.
anybody when they say African American lives matter. But Black Lives Matter, it's a crooked organization run by Marxist, communist, crooked people. But you know what? It's politically not correct to say that. Mm-hmm. So everybody, I mean, it's a joke. Do you know, and I know this for a fact, Joel, NBC, this is a true story. When the riots and the looting were going on last summer, a mandate came down from NBC Legal. This is a fact. Mm-hmm. Came down, and the writers were told, when you're writing these stories, do not use the words looting and rioting. So the writers looked at one another and said, well, how are you supposed to do these stories?
Yeah.
Can I just say something for the record? Because we are on the... I am genuinely sad because you went, I am 10, 11 years or at least older than you. When I first arrived in the early 60s to this country to marry his father, okay, I came in 61. Mm-hmm. I remember the history of the, what was it called, voter registration in the South.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what were those Jewish boys called? Goodwin and...
I don't, from Mississippi.
You're right,
burning.
the three of them.
Three
You're
of them
100%
were
right.
Killed.
Three of them.
In the deep South for registering blacks. Martin Luther King marched with the Jews. And now we are the dirty Jews, and we are treated like shit. Speaking of shit, the second time.
You could say it the third time and the fourth time too. That's okay, because there's a lot of truth to that.
Russ, what do you kind of attribute to this division in society? I mean,
there is definitely a very sad division.
Some people, say it was because Trump was so polarizing. I mean, I think it's a combination of things.
You know what? Listen. Trump did, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, Trump did some good things. The problem, what he didn't do, he did not unite the country. At the same time, I'm an example. I grew up, I'm a housing project kid. And the people growing up in the housing projects, we all grew up in Democratic homes. All our homes were Democratic. But this is not the Democratic Party that I grew up with. This is way to the left. It does not resemble anything. And quite frankly, the president of the United States right now is a figurehead. Mm-hmm. He's nothing more than a figurehead. I don't expect him to last the 4 years.
Who is running the country?
The left is running the country. The left is running the country, and Kamala Harris is just waiting to park her tuchus in the White House.
Karm, does that make you nervous?
I just heard, listen to this.
Listen to this.
I just heard.
That's Carmela's catchphrase. Listen to this.
Because nobody ever listens to me,
I'm listening, Carmela.
Okay, listen. Somebody told me a term that really had an impact. They called it cattle car Jews.
Cattle car Jews, like in the Holocaust.
Did you ever hear this term, cattle car Jews?
Well, I've heard cattle cars, but I haven't heard that term.
But the new cattle car Jews, the new Jews who don't know what they are saying, that will end them up in cattle cars.
Interesting. Not a good look.
Russ, good look.
What did you think when you flipped the TV on January 6th and you saw everybody rushing the Capitol?
Well, I mean that was complete insanity, and
I agree.
Look,
and horror.
Do I think Trump did it intentionally? No. Do I think it was premeditated? No. But he certainly didn't help the issue. He didn't help himself. And whether you liked Mike Pence or not, for him to say what he said about Pence and put Pence at risk was a mess. It was an embarrassment
I think he
to me.
did it in rage, like Tyson.
Yeah.
Like Tyson. He was like
Trump
in
used to
rage.
promote boxing. So there's
What? No. But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was furious because he has a megalomania. He thinks that. Anyway, going back to
Russ,
you.
you think that social media, Twitter, and all these different things also have an impact on the division? Because if, like right now, today, if you go to Twitter, Gaza under attack is trending, and then I think terrorists are trending. So it's like both sides of the spectrum,
Joe, you're in the news business. I mean, look what social media has done to the news. Back in the day, you had to go verify a story.
Yeah.
You and I, when I started out in the business in Toronto, my first news director said to me, in our business, if your mother tells you she loves you, you still got to go verify the story. And his point was, you can't just take something for at its word. Now, the tail wags the dog. If you see something on Twitter, if you see something on social media or something, already this is illegal. I've seen it happen in newsrooms. Oh, did you see this? It's on Twitter. Go. I mean, what are we chasing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. So
even at Fox 5, I mean, I don't want to name names, but we were essentially told stop covering the news and just do stuff that people are interested in, which was, Twitter hashtag type stuff. So the whole industry, when you turn on cable news now, like CNN, MSNBC, what do you think of it, Russ? Is it more
I think it's terrible. There's no journalistic integrity. I think everybody comes on with an agenda, whether you're conservative, whether you're to the right or you're to the left. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. I watch the shows on Sunday morning. Okay, I watch the show Face the Nation and Meet the Press, and I've said this several times. Margaret Brennan, I believe she does Face the Nation.
Yeah,
and a couple of things have happened. Somebody must have told her to be really tough, because I almost find she's rude sometimes when she's interviewing people. But I will say this, and I've said this on the air. Margaret Brennan interviews people to get answers. On Meet the Press, Chuck Todd interviews people
get reaction
to enhance his agenda. There's a distinct difference.
I cannot stand Chuck Todd.
If we're going to have a discussion, me, you, your mom, somebody else, we didn't come on with the predetermined. When you called me up, I didn't come on, Russ, we have to do this, we have to do that. You're going to talk. You got to have both sides of the coin to talk about. Otherwise, it's a bullshit story.
Right. So let me ask you a question, because I'm afraid we're going to finish without ever asking you. You had a gentle, almost 30-year run at 9 and 5, right?
More than 30 years.
It's right now. It's 33 and still counting. I'm still doing the
33.
Still going.
That's unheard of today.
Especially at one's channel.
That's what. To be frank with you, that is one thing I'm very proud of, to be in the biggest market in the world at one place without having to bounce around.
And what
that
a
I am
city,
very proud
and
of.
what a market, and what it's. They say if you make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere. So to do it in New York.
Russ, you think New York City makes a full comeback from this whole Corona episode?
Oh, I hope so. But there are so many. Listen, nobody could have foresaw this.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, and I'm not a fan, but whether you like Donald Trump or not, he's not responsible for COVID-19.
Yeah.
If there was a Democrat in office at the time, you'd have to deal with the same stuff. But this whole thing has become political, just like wearing a fakakta mask it's become political. No, it is.
No, I totally agree with you.
It's the point of stupidity now.
No, he liked the word fakakta.
No, I totally agree with you. It's and what's going on with de Blasio, man? guy.
Well, no, and now you're talking about, and see that's another thing. People, New York City is a Democratic city. Okay, how the hell is this guy put in office for a second term? There's $1 billion that nobody from Thrive that I think for mental health people that him and his wife, he put his wife in charge. Nobody can find $1 billion.
Oh, I lost $1 billion also.
Yeah.
Would my insurance cover it?
No, but between De Blasio, we can go on for not hours, months. Between De Blasio and Cuomo, look what New York has become, the state and the city.
Well, I vaguely remember New York. I remember my parents taking me in the 70s with all the graffiti on the subways, the squeegee guys, and I haven't been back. I mean, I go back frequently to visit family, but I haven't really been in the city since pre-pandemic. And from a perspective outside the city, reading the Post and the New York Times, it's like every day there's shootings, there's stabbings, all these. It's crazy what's going on.
Well, that's another thing. I don't want to make this all about BLM, and I know we're getting short on time, but let me give you an example. And I said this, my podcast this week. You just had a gunman shoot 3 innocent bystanders in Times Square.
Yeah.
One was a 4-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Right.
One was a 4-year-old
I saw
girl.
a policewoman carrying her.
Where is BLM? Where is Al Sharpton? Where is Ben Crump? When that 1-year-old little boy in his Davel Gardner this summer in his stroller was shot, 1 year old. Brandon Hendricks, the high school basketball player in the Bronx, was shot innocently. Where was Sharpton and Crump saying, we can't do this. We're embarrassing our own community. We're embarrassing our own people. We have to be better than this so people treat us better. Where are they when this happens? No place to be found.
100%.
You know why? Because race doesn't sell unless it's black against white or white against black. That it becomes sexy. That sells. You go into a newsroom.
Yeah, but one step even further, why do you need that black and white divide? It must be covering something else. What is the agenda that it's covering? It is a way to something different. I don't know what the Democrats have as an agenda that they need to do this.
But you think this is actually calculated? Like people sit here and discuss
Listen,
this?
I am paranoid. I told in the very beginning of the podcast that I do have some paranoia. You know what Kissinger said? Kissinger said that even paranoid people have real enemies.
That's very good.
So I'm a little bit paranoid, but I cannot understand unless it serves a purpose to divide us like this. Because now I'm going to show off, but I learned this in Yugoslavia, in a lousy little shtetl. I learned this, that the Roman emperor said, divide and rule.
Conquer. Divide and conquer.
And rule.
Same difference.
So I think it's like to rule better, you have to divide.
You're right.
I think there's some truth to that. Well, listen.
But wait a second. I have to ask one more question.
Russ has to go. So this is on
related
Karm.
to his experience.
Go for it.
Because you were in this very same place. First of all, everybody must have loved you. And so
you're talking the
not
projects?
everybody, but that's okay.
You're talking the projects, or you talking Channel 5?
No, Channel 5.
Okay.
Same difference.
Same difference, yeah.
Anyway.
Everyone loves Russ.
So how did it feel when you... Wait a second. Did you? If I remember, you started out in Toronto.
Yes.
By literally walking off your job. Your wife worked and you went into this, right?
Right.
I read up on you.
I can tell.
Yeah. Anyway, and then now we are getting the full trajectory of this. And now the last time you reported on the 10 o'clock, do you know where your children are?
The famous
there
broadcast.
You go.
And
how did you feel?
The last time I did it, you always feel a little melancholy because you like what you do. But I keep myself busy. I have 3 grandsons, 3, 5, and 6. So that takes up a lot of. That's why I got to leave here, because I got to go take the 3-year-old to T-ball, and I can't miss that. That is on my agenda this afternoon.
We are going to let you go. The last pitch to you, Russ, is I think Carmela is ready for her own show on either WABC or 970. So next time you're in there.
Trust me, I am just doing this, as I say, Joel, every Wednesday afternoon, Joel takes me out of the condominium, which is almost like a nursing home. And, I have a husband at home who is in a wheelchair. So I really feel that this is like my thing away, and we are in Miami, and believe it or not, I just discovered that the studio is called Miami Studios.
Miami Podcast Studio.
What could be better than this picture? A Jewish son and his mom in Miami doing a podcast.
Absolutely.
And live on Collins Avenue.
Yeah.
What could be better?
I'll have you know, too, we're not the only Jewish people in here. Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, he does his podcast right at this desk.
There you go.
Yeah, just making a ton of money.
Joel prepared me that I was going to really enjoy this, because I was a little nervous. I said, if I cannot butt in, what's my life worth?
I have to tell you, I've really enjoyed it a great deal. Anytime, Joel.
This is the Jewish goodbye where she can't say goodbye. Russ, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Really, really, really appreciate it. And I consider you a legend. You may consider yourself just Russ, but I'm just
Russ. That's all I am.
Joel always talked about you, and I remember seeing you.
I do appreciate the kind words.
Okay.
All right, be well.
I'll be in touch with you offline.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Right back for the news schmooze. Bye-bye. See you later, Russ.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
All right, and we are back. What do you think of Russ?
Well, I told you, I feel like we are family already.
He's a real mensch. I'm sure he'll be down in Miami Beach at some point.
We have to think of a second adjective, because we call everybody mensch.
A mensch, I know.
Because we are so deeply touched that they were willing to come on our podcast that
I told everyone on Twitter that Steve Kappas is a mensch.
I know.
He retweeted it. He didn't think twice, coming from Philly and New York. So real quick, time for the news schmooze. We're going to fly through these stories today.
Okay.
Medina Spirit. Who is that?
The horse. And they was doped.
Very good.
First, you were so proud that he was an Arabian.
An Arabian horse.
An Arabian horse. Horse.
And what do you think of the fact that now he got, or I don't know if it's a he or she, but got busted for basically, I don't know, it's some kind of anti-inflammatory drug, but it's probably something steroid related. And Bob Baffert, who's the trainer, has been accused of this multiple times in his career.
Yeah, but he never was brought down.
Do you feel bad for these horses?
I feel very bad. First of all, I used to like to go to Gulfstream in Aventura.
That's the racetrack here.
The racetrack. Just once a year I would go there, and I would love the whole atmosphere. I like those people who are really into it, and they talk business to each other about the races. But then when I heard how much these horses are treated, like exploited, I didn't go anymore.
Carmelo, the next
it's enough
story.
That people are exploited.
The next story is about a fitfluencer. Do you know what that is?
Probably that influences you to be fit.
Very good. It's an Instagram person. So now there is a guy from the great state of New Jersey, our home state, who is having someone hit him with watermelons and baseball bats to strengthen his abdominal section. Has influencing gone too far? Have we jumped the shark now?
If I have to tell you, you are a world talent in finding the craziest, weirdest stories to annoy me with.
So you don't want to pay any attention to that.
I know. I don't want any watermelons thrown at me.
This last story,
even though I like watermelons.
This last story, if it happened to my beloved Mabel Rose, or may she rest in piece, Zilla, also known as Killa, I would have gone to prison for this. This was a little white poodle who was brought to a PetSmart, and 4 employees at PetSmart basically abused and tortured this dog and killed it.
Can I just say something to you?
Yes.
Don't do this anymore, Joel. Because don't do this. There is enough horror already. Don't do this.
I brought this up because remember Toda.
Joel is he likes dogs better than he likes people.
Much, much better. But do you remember when we had Toda?
I remember.
And took her to the groomer.
Miniature schnauzer.
She was a nasty miniature schnauzer. And
Very nasty, from the first day to the last day.
And one
day
we
loved her.
Yes, and one day we took her to the groomer, and remember we came back.
Her eyes were bleeding.
Not her eyes. I remember she had a 5-inch piece of meat on the back.
I don't want to talk about
chopped it
this.
off and tried to paste it back on with the blood and stuff, and it was sickening.
You know, this is like Joel, the little boy playing with worms in the backyard.
That's why I send Rose to pimp my dog. Actually, they come to us here in Miami Beach because I would never make Mabel go to the beauty parlor.
Listen, Joel, you just plugged for them.
I did.
2,000 people will now go to them.
Our global audience.
They need to hire more people.
Karm, we're going to be right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
I think he thinks them up.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
All right, and we are back for our final segment where my 3 children come up randomly and actually unsolicited with questions for Grandma, also known as 3 questions for Grandma. We're going to start off with a very easy one today, Karm. What is 100 divided by 2?
Yes, she told me that now the first grader, Vida, she told me yesterday that they usually study multiplications in 2nd grade.
It's multiplication. It's not a plural.
Multiplication.
I guess it could be a plural, but I don't know. Like tissues. I mean, technically tissues.
Okay, so that's 50.
50. Great answer. Okay, let's move on to harder questions here. Why did God make the middle finger a bad sign?
Wait a second. I'll get out of this one. I will try to explain a little bit about symbols.
Make it quick, because I have to go pee.
Okay. No, you can't say that on air. You know, he drinks so much. Anyway.
Green tea, not alcohol.
Green tea. Where is the green tea?
It's over here.
Okay.
My voice went out today.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so you
why did he make the middle finger?
So
God?
You explained that people not only use words, but they usually use hand symbols. And some hand symbols like this is a nice one. It's heart. And they chose this to be a bad hand. I enjoy doing this.
Last question. What is inside your neshama? Neshama, for those of you, for our Gentile audience, is a soul in Hebrew. And my kids want to know what's inside your neshama.
So how do they envision neshama? They see it like a little plastic baggie?
I have no idea. I don't ask them. I just get the questions, and I usually ignore them or remember to put them in my phone.
Well, I don't think it's like in or out with a neshama. A neshama is like a nebulous thing, like a floating thing.
So
I will definitely bring this up with them and explain to them that it's not like a plastic bag that you put something in it, but a person's soul is who they are by showing it by behavior. Not
to bring up my torn meniscus again.
Oh my God, we are not going.
But I do have a tear, a flap tear, which is apparently even worse of the meniscus.
I think the editor has to erase this part because it's boring. And I am supposed to catch.
Today I was at the getting rehab for it apparently you can try to fix it before you need surgery. And the rehab guy says to me, you know why we have children? And I say, why? He says, because they slowly try to kill you.
Not so slowly, by the way.
So that's that. Karm, any closing thoughts on this beautiful day?
It's not such a beautiful day today. I mean, I hate to be...
Are you going to be marching in any BLM protests?
No, the BLM is going to unwind and wind down. But I'm worried now about my granddaughters in Israel.
Let's hope that they are all safe and the situation, that Middle East peace is resolved after 5,000 years. Hopefully they figure out a way. But that's all for us. Love you, America. See you next week.